I've been wearing this thing since I did the opening. Ah, perfect, thanks. Since I did the opening remarks, and I can't wait to be done with this, take it off, and go to the restroom. I haven't had the guts to do that with a microphone on. Good. I just want to use a second here to actually say a little about where we are, and I forgot that during the opening remarks because it's so that this El Portal is actually an old modernist building, and for decades it was a storage for pharmaceutical products. And after that, it was for around 30 years, it was a family-run restaurant. So Jasmina, who now, and for the past 8 years, have been running this as a venue like this, together with her brother, they sometimes experience people from Barcelona coming in for events, and then they go and say, I've been here before, I've been here before, I've been here before. And then it's because they've been at the restaurant many years ago. So I thought that was kind of fun. And then one more thing, those chairs, they are from India. They are bought from old Indian cinemas. So a ton of Bollywood movies have probably been watched off of those chairs. So I hope you're having as much fun as those guys have had. Good. Creativity at scale with flow is the topic for today. And I'm actually going to use Pixelz as a case story on how to scale creativity with flow. And that's because very often we think about efficiency, and we think about productivity, and we think about creativity as opposites. But they're not. They can actually support each other very, very much if your processes is done in the right way, meaning by using the concept of flow production. Just to say a little, Pixelz is a Danish company. Denmark is a rather small company. I just checked it, there's about, in the greater area of Barcelona, there's approximately 5.5 million people. We're 5.5 million people in Denmark. So Denmark is of the size of Barcelona. We don't have any natural resources, really. So all we have is who we are and what we're able to do with our hands. So craftsmanship is a pretty big part of what we do. And craftsmanship also becomes creativity. It becomes aesthetics. It becomes design. It becomes stuff like that. And that is very much indeed what we live off of in Denmark. So, and especially also if you look at the restaurant industry, for several years, some of the best restaurants, and they've been selected as the best restaurants, Noma and Geranium, they're actually from Denmark. And those guys, they're artists. I'll get back to that later, because they are exceptionally creative people. What we do at Pixelz is, and that video thing, just to tell you a little about what we do, because you kind of need to know, Pixelz is a retouching company. So basically all we do is retouching of images, different kinds of images, e-commerce, elevated P2P, and editorial. But what we do is image retouching. That's the niche that we're in, that's what we do, and that's what we've tried to perfect. And I'll tell you a bit about the process and some of the things that we've been through. Good. Also, we're a global company. We serve customers around the globe. And currently, and that has been one of the struggles currently, we handle around 45,000 images every 24 hours. So that kind of puts a bit of pressure on processes, especially because just like what we do in Denmark, everything we do is basically creative. Everything we do is basically in Photoshop. So we're a creative company, but we need to scale to 45,000 units a day. How the fuck do you do that without losing creativity, but continuing to be efficient? And here comes the concept of flow. And to understand what flow is, I'm going to take you a bit back in time. This guy, he's called Henry Ford. He developed a car back then. he decided that he was going to disrupt the way we did personal transportation. So he developed the car. And he was very successful. He was very successful. And he said, I think I can do even better. I'll make 2 different models, 3, 4 different models. And those cars became hugely popular. And that's when things started to become very, very difficult for Mr. Ford. Because what he'd done previously was he had one team building one car. So basically what he stocked everything needed to build a car. Then he had a specific team that built a car and then off to the customer. But that becomes increasingly difficult to handle those operations when you all of a sudden you have 4 different cars, and you have teams that are, and then what if he has a team that's doing this car, but they're not selling it anymore? They need to build more of this car, but those guys that are building that car, they're not trained to build that car. That means that he has people sitting, doing nothing while he needs to produce. So he sat down. He said, I need to disrupt this thing once more. I need to disrupt the way we're producing. So what he did was he created the assembly line. People said, Mr. Ford, you're crazy. You cannot do that. You cannot have one person specializing in mounting the wheels, and another one the engine, and a third one the chassis, and the fourth one you can't have that. And then you're going to ask them to do that even on different models. So now I'm mounting a car both on model A, model B, model C. That's not going to happen. You cannot do that. He insisted. They developed this assembly line, and he took down the production time from a Ford T model from 12 hours to 1 hour and 33 minutes. And he increased quality along the road. He was on to something. What he did was he focused on the machine that builds the machine. He focused on the process. Another guy who's taken that to an even more extreme level is this guy out here, Elon Musk. Elon Musk, he says he is extremely driven by delivering the best products in the world. And he's realized that the way to do that is to optimize the process. So what he says is he believes that there's a 10x, where is that? 10x factor to be done on the machine that builds the machine, actually, in order to create room and more space to develop the actual product. So what he's done for years is he's been sitting down. You can run the video. He's actually been sitting in production. And this is a video of one of the Tesla gigafactories, the most efficient factories in the world. You see, this is complete flow. Everything runs continuously. Flow, continuous here. Another thing that happens is the car runs on a certain assembly line, and then it's connected to other flow assembly lines that are connected to it. So it's like a whole ecosystem of different flow assembly lines that comes together in a Model 3. This is a Model 3 from a gigafactory. The result is that right now they have an assembly line. When they do the Model 3, the car moves at 14.6 kilometers an hour. You can't even run alongside their assembly line. That's how fast it goes. They build a Model 3 in 44 seconds today. It's pretty darn amazing. Good. The next one. Here I'm going to illustrate to you what is batch production. And these guys are making paper airplanes. Simple little demonstration. What is batch production? Good. You see, now they will start producing. He has a batch over here of things that are entering into his, let's call it, production. Then he does whatever he's supposed to do in his department. And then he stores it here until he's done doing everything he needs to do. When he's done, he passes the stock over to this guy, who then does whatever he needs to do. And when he's done, he passes on the whole pile to the next group. The whole process of doing this, of creating these, I believe they're doing 5 airplanes, are they not, is almost 5 minutes in a batch production. Another thing that you need to notice along the way, can you pause it? Oops, wait. Another thing you need to notice is there's a lot, by default, batching produces a lot of bottlenecks along the road, and it takes up an increasing amount of space between processes. You see here, now, their flow production. He does one, he passes it on, he moves on directly, finishes off constantly. There's one piece on the move in production, constantly. It's flowing, continuous. And now they do all 5 airplanes in 1 minute, 44 seconds. Pretty darn big difference. And I'm telling you, this is very, very, you can turn it off. This is a very simple way of showing it. But the more processes you put in line, the bigger the difference and the benefits will be. And if you notice the second one, they're flowing from one to another all the time, so no bottlenecks. No stock in between, no waste. And that's the secret of flow production. Good. And then the next thing is creativity. Can creativity flow? And now I'm going back to the restaurants. Because one thing is that these chefs at these restaurants, take a Noma, take a Geranium, take an El Bulli, whatever, you know what? They are artists. But another thing that they are is they are masters of flow production. Why? Because they need to produce the ultimate product every single time, and they use 100% specialized employees. It's not random that you go into Noma and one day, I'd like to do the dessert today. No, you don't. You want to peel the potatoes like you've been taught to peel the potatoes, and you do nothing else but peel the potatoes. Go peel potatoes. Okay, I'll peel potatoes. Okay, that's how it is. So they used highly specialized people, and they demand the ultimate quality. Another thing is they want to serve everything 100% fresh. Fresh. So they do not want to batch anything. These guys are masters of flow production. So can creativity be scaled using flow? I guarantee you it can be done. And then who can benefit from this? Because there are certain things. For one, you need to have a certain volume. If you do just one piece every once in a while, doesn't matter. The second thing is you need to have a flow of physical items, products. The third is you need to have a somewhat standardized product. And they even have that at the restaurants. You don't go into any one of the 10 most famous and best restaurants in the world and you see a menu with 1 million things on it. You don't. It's relatively standardized because they need to produce the absolute optimal quality every single time. It's only your little local pizza guy who can have 1 million pizzas and throw all kinds of shit on top of it and serve a so-so quality. And then another thing, if you haven't changed your processes since you had a smaller volume, you can also benefit from this. Surveys show that if you 2x your company, you lose between 15 and 25% of efficiency. So if you have not touched your processes for a while, go back and take a look at them. Good. I need to make sure how far I am now. So how do we approach this at Pixelz? Everything we do at Pixelz, I said it before, we do it in Photoshop, right? So this was basically our enemy, number one. Why? Because Photoshop is made for what? Batching. One person does everything, right? You send off an image to one editor. That editor opens up that photo in Photoshop, does whatever needs to be done, closes it down, sends it off, period. Pure batching. And you know what? It works amazing. If you have a team of 1 or 5 or 10 or 20 maybe, or if you use it every once in a while. But at Pixelz, in the beginning, this guy sitting down here is one of the founders. In the beginning, it worked out perfect with this Photoshop thing. We were 50 employees, 100 employees. I got a little bit difficult, right? Because what happens in Photoshop is we train teams for different customers. Just like Ford in the beginning, he trained teams for specific car, versions of the car. and it's not flexible, it's not optimal. So all of a sudden we found out, fuck, we spend as much time managing production as actually doing production. So we need to completely rethink what we're doing. So Photoshop was actually our biggest enemy. So what we did was, first of all, we needed to know our processes in detail. Then we needed to develop the vision that we had for what we wanted to achieve. And third, then we need to actually make it happen. So if I click once, we needed to find out what was actually going on when people opened up Photoshop. Because you just think of that as one bucket of just a ton of different functionalities and things and operations that people do to an image. So do we have the full overview of the process? No, we didn't. We just sent it off to Photoshop, and then we kind of knew what went on in there, but we didn't actually have full overview of it. What steps produces the most value? Where do we need to focus? Well, kind of difficult to know that when you don't have a full overview of the process. Can we make processes redundant, or can we automate processes? Where do we have idle time? Where are we wasting time? And do we have bottlenecks? All of those things were very specifically defined. And then, do we know exactly where our time is spent? What processes exactly? Where does time go in? And do employees have the right skills and competences to actually do that, right? Or are we actually making the one who peels the potato the best? Are we asking that person to do the dessert? Are we optimizing those things? So what we did was, we said, okay, our vision was to make a flow production where we added a lot of AI retouching, a lot of automation, the human retouching where that's necessary, and then an ability to continuously deliver. Why? We wanted to create the gigafactory of retouching. And this was the vision we had. So the combination here of the hybrid model, and darn, I forgot to tell that when we showed the gigafactory. But one of the uniquenesses of the gigafactory is actually the combination of humans and machines in the production of the Model 3s. Because there are some things that machines do perfect, and then there are some things where humans just beat machines because we're unique individuals, and because we have the ability to adapt to a one-on-one case and evaluate that case. There are other things we do pretty bad as human. We're inconsistent. We all see things differently. We don't scale very well. It's a little difficult to start cloning a lot of people to get good potato peelers. So there's some things we don't do well where machines do a lot better. The second thing was we needed to completely, this is Photoshop. We send an image into Photoshop, we do everything we need to do in Photoshop. We needed to chop that up, and we did that. We actually ended up chopping up Photoshop into 160 steps. Just think about it. Do what you normally do in Photoshop, and imagine that it's even possible to divide that into 160 steps, but we did. So then we said, okay, now we need to find out which steps can we make redundant, or which steps can we automate. So then we started to take some of these tools here, and then we asked Sebastian, it's that guy, who's the rocket scientist from the beginning, and Janus, this guy over here, he's the nerdy guy of the founders. And I mean that in a good way most times. Right? And then we said, okay, how can we then start replacing humans with machines? And when we actually did, this is an actual process. This is an actual process of that an image goes through, right? So we know that there are some things here that are completely automated. That's the green ones. No, the light ones, and then the dark green ones are the manual ones, if I remember correct. But then you see, we have all these steps, meaning that you get a lot of data on what actually happens when we peel the potatoes. And then at a certain time, you have enough data on how do we specifically peel potatoes. So at a certain time, you can automate potato peeling. And that way, what we've done over the years is we've gone to a 70% automation rate on production, which again allows an extreme flexibility. But that's some of the things that we needed to do in order to completely disrupt how Photoshop was working and disrupt the way retouching was done. And then another thing we need, and this is crucial if you read about going from batch production to flow production, we needed a tool to handle the processes. As a photo studio, you're in an amazing situation because you guys have software providers out there that do applications that handle stuff like that We didn't. So we had to develop that system. And here you have a system. This is an actual screenshot from a system that actually, keeps control of all of these different processes that is built in real time for every single image in order to deliver the exact quality needed. So that was the thing that we needed to actually create ourselves. Good. We have some before and after here, but I won't read you through them. You can read them yourself or take an image or whatever. But this is what we did before and after. And I'll just point out one thing. We used to have around 25,000 images a day. When we started all of this, we had approximately 800 people in production. Another thing, now we do around 45,000 in a 24-hour run with approximately 430 people. So it's more than double. It's more than double the efficiency and productivity in that system. But that's another thing that comes with going from batching to flow. You need to change your mindset. You need to move away from being a production company to becoming a technology company. Because when a production company has a problem, they throw people at it to minimize the problem. A technology company, when a tech company sees a problem, they throw technology at the problem to eliminate the problem. And that's the difference in the methodology and way of thinking from a production company to a tech company. And that's an important thing as well. So we got everything we needed here. And then, can this be used for photo studios? I think it can. We were actually part of a bestseller case back with the bestseller e-com studios in Poland, where they implemented providers that were thinking the flow methodology in order to optimize everything they did in the studio. And what they achieved was an 80% cut in lead time in 3 weeks. So an amazing impact. An amazing impact. But why can they do that and do it so fast? Because they're in a situation that we weren't. There are providers that actually think and do and can help them do this. So it can most definitely be done. One of the things you need to start out if you want to get on this journey here, that is that time ticking down for me there? I haven't even noticed. Oh, I'm spot on. I have 1 minute and 7 seconds left. Whew. And this is my last slide. I need a prize, Alexandra. Now I have only 56 seconds left. Good. One thing you need to do is basically what we did. Do you actually have a full overview of the process? Do you know every single little tiny thing that goes on? And when we say tiny thing, think about the Tesla Gigafactory. Think about taking Photoshop and chopping it up into 160 steps. Where's value created? What can I make flow? How can we divide processes in order to add specialists, right? Think about the restaurants. Where is idle time? Where's the idle time and what is the cause of it? What's the root cause? I've been to many photo studios. I have not yet been to one where I haven't seen 1 million hangers with a ton of clothes. And then at the end, when we go buy something, then we go buy something that's developed into a warehouse where there are big plastic boxes of old things that were shot a long time ago or whatever. But it's just sitting there. Taking up space. Space is money. So there's a lot of things here, bottlenecks. How do we redesign the process? Those are the questions you need to ask. And then, thirdly here, that's about the specialization thing. How do we increase specialization? Because people who are specialized, in peeling potatoes, they peel potatoes better than the ones that occasionally peel potatoes. And can we simplify the process, right? Can someone actually open the bag with potato, another one washes them, and a third one peels them? I guarantee you it'll be more efficient if you have one person doing it all. And can we add tech, or can we add technological solutions, applications to support what we're doing? That's like the last thing of the third question. Those are things that you need to go through. That's a mental process. And then you can't go home and say, we're going to move from batch to flow, and then think it's going to be an easy process. It's not. It's painful. It's extremely painful. And you need someone dedicated to a project like this. And you need someone who think it's fun to be a nerd around it. In other words, you need a Janus, but he's taken, okay? Good. I'm done, and I'm 2 minutes and 35 over now.
Well, we're not done yet. We've got some questions.
I blew it.
We got some questions.
We do?
May I borrow the slider?
Yes, you may borrow that.
Do you want to stand? Do you want to sit?
I'm standing.
All right. All right. So first question is, did Ryan just give you a promotion in your introduction? I didn't ask it. All right. First question. How difficult, time and money-wise, is it to switch to flow system from the traditional model?
That's a good question, right? Because it depends exactly about what product are you actually producing. Well, there are different levels of creativity. I can tell you for us, back in the days when Janus and the other two finals, they were basically close to saying, we close down Pixelz. We don't want to deal with this stuff. It's all about managing the production. It's not about doing what we actually wanted to do, the retouching side. They sat down and said, we need to disrupt this thing until it is fully working. Probably took us around 5 years. And we probably, as a company, invested, I don't know, 4 or 5 millions in doing what we needed to do. But listen, we didn't have any providers out there. There's not a company out there that's helping companies like us go from batch to flow. As a photo studio, if you can go online and you can read the bestseller case. They basically spent a lot of time prepping the move from batch to flow. Then they implemented different tools in order to support them run flow production. And I think they did it in, where's Jacob? You're there. Where's James? You're there. How long was that process? 3 months? Huh?
Yeah, about 2.5, 3 months. When we came in at the end, we were very lengthy.
Yeah. Yeah. But they also had dedicated resources to drive the process at their...
It's a project.
It's a project, yes. Yeah, exactly. And it was a very top-down driven project as well. Like, we want to do this. Yeah.
All right, next question. Other than efficiency, is there other wins from flow?
Yes, there are huge wins. And these are not just wins that we've seen at Pixelz. This is actually generic when switching from batching to flow. First of all, you gain efficiency. The other thing is that the guy who's the best at peeling potatoes does nothing but peel potatoes. So you actually increase quality as well. You increase quality significantly. Another thing you increase is that the guy who peels potato does it all the time, so quality increases. What happens to consistency? Consistency goes up as well. So quality goes up and your consistency level goes up as well. What happens to how fast he peels potatoes? He does that he's more efficient. So your turnaround time, meaning your output time, will drop significantly. If we go back to before we shifted to flow, we probably had, 50, 60,000 images sitting in the system, waiting in different queues all the time. Now we rarely have more than half that number, even though the total volume has gone up, it has doubled. And why? Because everything constantly flows. We have no bottlenecks, we have no storages, we have no stops. And it means actually that the process is a lot more simple. A lot more simple. One of the biggest difficulties in moving from batch to flow is that we, as humans, back in the Stone Age, right, when the brains were developed and so, we don't understand flow. We are batching. We are batching. Imagine back in the Stone Age, okay, I'll make the spear, and then I'll hope someone comes by and does the spearhead, and a third one comes by to go hunting, and a fourth one to do the butchering, and a fifth one to do the cooking. That's not how the human mind. I need to fix it all myself. We are batching by default, so we need to learn how to think in flow, and that's one of the things. Good. Are we done?
Yeah, humans are batching crazy.
Good.
All right. Thank you so much, Thomas.
You're welcome.